We'll continue to return to this question, but I want to introduce it here, is so if older adults do have a lower prevalence of mental disorders, how come? And here I want to introduce you to a lifespan developmental diathesis stress model. Now that's saying a mouthful. So diathesis stress model refers to the idea that vulnerability to mental illness represents a combination of diathesis. And diathesis would be genetic background, biologic makeup, personality. So it's what you bring to the situation. And the diathesis mixed in with stress, those external things that happen to you. And the general idea is these things sort of hit a balance. So folks who have a higher level of diathesis, who are more vulnerable, would need less stress to tip them over into mental disorder, and vice versa. So I'm further suggesting that the diatheses and the stresses must both be considered from a lifespan model. And here, you're going to love this, is a diagram that comes from a chapter written with Julia Castle-Godley and Michelle Carroll. And what we did here was based on the literature. So this is a cartoon. This is not real data, but it maps well on a lot of real data. It suggests that biologic vulnerability has an increase in old age as there's more illness. And stressful life events, we know this already, are really high when you're young. When you're in high school and college, really rotten time for stressful life events. And they tend to go down and rise up again in older age. But psychological diathesis tends to go down with age as people become better at managing their own lives, at coping. So the psychological vulnerability is going down. And if you squint and add all these things together, it will look a whole lot like the pattern of mental symptoms over age. We will return to each and every one of these themes, but is there anything anyone wants to ask now before we switch gears into the next part? Yeah.
So diathesis, you were saying, is genetics, biology, and personality?
Yes, and in this picture, I don't have genetics.
Yeah, because that's
but
what
I have because genetics would have its bump over here.
Okay.
But I have biology
yeah, I just
and
realized
personality.
It's psychological. Okay,
yeah.
That answers my question. Thank
yeah.
you.
Anything else?
But wouldn't the genetics be the biological vulnerability, or?
Well, it could be that the genetics contribute to why there's more disease in old age.
So then what do you mean by biological vulnerability? You mean just like the aging body and... Okay.
Increase in vascular disease with age and so on. Okay, and take it as a cartoon, though. Don't be too literal.
Is there any cultural differences in terms of stuff or life events? Or because different cultures say different.
This is a very good question. Yes.
But in your model, or in this cartoon,
in this cartoon, do I think that this is the right guess for stressful life events across culture? I probably don't know. And I'm real sure that it's different. Stresses are stressful across culture. But I don't know any research that's asked the question about which ages are more or less stressful in which cultures. Now you've got a thesis. That's a really good question. All right, so we're going to shift to psychosis. Everyone hang on. Is that the correct first slide?
No, that's okay. Maybe it's just taking a while.
There, that looks good.
That looks good.
Let's try this again. Okay, what do you think?
Did you click on the top where it says slideshow? And did it-
Let's try this.
Well, we can just go from here, I suppose.
You actually could.
Yeah, it really, in fact, look at that, this still works. Yeah, you'll see when it's almost my last slide. So prior to about 4 months ago, I really didn't know anything about life psychosis other than sort of what I read about it and, just knew as a clinical psychology student, which I am here, but now I'm currently across town working at UCLA. I feel like I should say that quietly, but I'm working at the medical center there in geropsychology, and part of my responsibilities include seeing a lot of inpatient geriatric persons, and have become quite familiar with psychosis in general because that's what we see a lot of. So just to get a definition out there of what psychosis is, a good sort of broader definition, without being too broad, is that it's basically an impairment of reality testing causing cognitive or behavioral disturbances and often manifested as delusions or hallucinations. Getting the terms of embedded in this definition are kind of important. So when we talk about delusions, we're basically talking about some belief system that is not based on reality. Okay, so you can have anywhere from mild delusions or non-bizarre delusions, something like, the what's that big? Never mind. I'll leave personal preference out of it. But something like the mafia is out to get me. Sure, the mafia has been known to be after people, so that's possibly non-bizarre. But if you say something like the mafia is out to get me, and they've implanted electrodes in my brain, and they're controlling me, and so on and so forth, things that are just really implausible, and probably have never been true for anyone, are more bizarre delusions. And when we talk about hallucinations, we're talking about any distortion in perception, in any sensory modality. So we can have visual hallucinations, which in general, when we talk about schizophrenia in a second, are actually pretty rare. More common, and this is in general, we're going to have auditory hallucinations, olfactory or tactile, sort of the bugs are crawling up my skin feelings, or olfactory being sort of a smell, like, oh, I smell something no one else does. Anyway, and they can be any, again, you can have a whole range of theories. So some other features that we talked about are sort of this idea of a thought disorder. So you're really also seeing things such as loosening of associations and thought derailment. So for example, I'm going to be sprinkling in de-identified case examples here. I didn't feel comfortable writing them down because I just didn't. But one example would be I was testing someone and asked them, okay, in what way, this is just a part of a standard neuropsychological protocol, in what way are a lion and a tiger alike? And she said, they'll both kill you, your stepmother will kill you,